and welcome back to Yogamas. It's day 22 and I'll be taking you through another sequence of pose breakdowns and modifications today. And I thought I'm feeling a little bit lazy today, so we are going to tackle lying postures, okay? So the first one I want to address is basically Cobra Pose. And as you might know, Cobra Pose is basically when you're lying on your stomach, you're taking your hands and placing them either right below your shoulders or a bit further down next to your rib cage, and then you press into your hands, roll your shoulders back and come up. And either you're here, or if you have the flexibility and range of motion, then you can come up until your arms are mostly locked out. Don't go and completely lock out your elbows, that's just not good for your joints, but have a slight bend and see what's comfortable for you. What is super important is that you are squeezing your bum while you're doing it. So basically when you're squeezing, then you don't tend to really dump into your lower back, which can happen if you like loose all over, but you just generate a bit of strength here. And yeah, basically you have your leg muscles a bit tightened, you squeeze your bum, and then you press up, and that's Cobra Pose. You can choose to look forwards or look upwards, whatever feels best in your neck, but that's it basically. Now, as for variations, there really isn't a lot you can do. And that is mostly because either you have the range of motion for doing it or you don't. So if you don't have the range of motion for coming up here, then as I've said before, being down here is perfectly okay. That's rather something like a baby cobra. And if you just can't come up that far, then just modify into a Sphinx pose, and that is basically if you have your elbows right beneath your shoulder and press your hands into the floor to have some, distribution of weight here, and just be here. As in, in terms of activation, the same principle as for Cobra applies. So squeeze your butt, have your muscles in your legs engaged a bit, and just be strong. It is a strong pose. It might not look like it, but it really is. And if you are in Sphinx pose and want to go like stretch a little more into your back, or go a little bit, like feel as if the back bend is a little deeper, then just imagine that you're drawing your elbows down to your feet. So it opens up your chest a little bit more. Now, that's what you can do in terms of obvious modifications. The one thing I can offer you additionally is if you feel the pose in your hip bones a lot. So if you feel like your hip bones are really smashing into the ground, and this can be really uncomfortable, then grab a blanket and fold it over, maybe like so, and place it where your hip bones are. And with that cushion, it's a lot more comfortable to be pressing into the floor here. Now, this brings me to basically two other poses I want to cover, and the first one is, actually I won't, because I will be covering the other pose in a video that comes out on Thursday. But what I will be covering is frog pose. Now, I know that for most of you, frog pose will be something like this. And I am teaching it like this, and this is what I've come to know as frog pose as well. However, there is another frog pose, and this one is a lying down one. So in the lying down version, frog pose is you lying down and having your feet in and in some way, shape or form holding on to them. Now, depending on how flexible you are, you can come up a bit, if that's what it takes to catch your feet. And usually you should aim for having your head on the floor. Again, if this hurts on your hip bones, a blanket as a cushion is a great choice. Otherwise, if you simply cannot reach your legs, then you always, as always, have the option of using the strap. And in this case, you would loop it, and this requires a little bit of coordination. Loop it around your feet and come here. And this is a really nice way if you have anything that looks like a strap or a belt or something like that. And if you don't, and if you just can't reach your feet, then make the pose active. So by this I mean that you would just reach behind yourself, try and get your feet as close to your bum, reach back and come here. And this is vastly more difficult, and that's why it's an active pose. And personally, I would suggest to try and incorporate as many active poses as you can into your practice, because this is where you build up the strength and the power to be able to hold these postures. Because basically, once you have the range of motion to catch your feet, then this is really like, it's easy. I can hang out here for an hour and it wouldn't bother me at all. But doing it in an active way, well, I certainly wouldn't be staying here, wouldn't want to be staying here for 5 minutes. So, yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you're not doing strength training anyway, and I would suggest you do it, then at least try and incorporate active poses into your practice, okay? So that being said, let's move on. And if you're asking yourself where I'm looking, I have my cheat sheet ready again. So next on my list would be, the lovely shoulder stand. Now, let's see. Basically, you come into shoulder stand by, and I'm sure you've done this as a kid a ton of times. You might not have been doing it since, but I'm sure you have done before. So you start by having your feet up in the air, and then use some momentum and come up here. Now the ultimate aim is that you are pretty straight, and as you can probably imagine, it is really hard to talk if you're really straight here. So I will stay like this because it makes it easier to breathe and to talk to you. So what you need to know is that you really use your arms to help yourself be in that pose. You can walk your hands further in, you can have them further out, whatever suits you best. And basically, this is it. Try and point your toes, looks nicer, feels nicer, is easier. Squeeze your bum, and basically just try and breathe. Yeah, so if you for some reason can't do this, and if you have any problems with your neck or with your upper back, then I would absolutely urge you to not go into shoulder stands, either unsupported or, more importantly, without talking to your doctor beforehand. I don't want you to injure yourself. It really isn't that important to be up there, trust me. Please, please, please take care of yourself. This is vastly more important than any yoga flow. Now, if you for some reason can't go into a full shoulder stand, what you can do is have a version where you elevate your hips a little bit, where you're still basically on your shoulders, where you have your feet up, but it's just not as hard on your neck. This would be one version. Now, if you have a wall handy, then you could also place your feet against the wall and push yourself up into a more shoulder stand-like posture. Let's see if I can imagine that this is a wall, and I would be, in this case, come up here, for example. So this is not a full shoulder stand, it's like an elevated bridge, but it's still more weight on your shoulders and on your neck than before. And you would also hold on to your hips here, or your back rather. And if you were here, and if you wanted to go a little bit further, you could pick up one leg and try and get a feeling for being on your shoulders, basically. Now, I think that's mostly it in terms of modification. So if you like the feet up against the wall, or basically as you've seen, a chair works, like it kind of works as well. That's a middle ground that helps you get into the full position if you need the help. Otherwise, please stay on the ground and make it a little bit more chilled out and a lot safer. Now, if you can do the shoulder stand, usually the next thing your yoga teacher will be cueing is going into Plow Pose. And this means basically having your feet come down here. Now, if you can do this, you may want to interlace your fingers and have your arms stretched out for counterbalance. Usually you would aim for the top of your feet being on the floor. If this feels uncomfortable, or if you don't have the range of motion, then just tuck your toes here, like this. Or you can also bend into your knees to make it a little bit more accessible, because this full expression is really hard on the back of your legs. And if you bend your knees, then you are very close to the next pose as well, and that's the ear pressure pose, which would be something like this. And it is aptly named because you have your knees around your ears, basically. Now, there really isn't a lot of variation I can offer you here. Basically, you either have the ability to really clamp onto your ears, or you stay somewhere like here or here. Either way, most importantly is that you come down controlled. So usually if you have the strength in your abs, then you don't need to come up here, but you can just control your roll down from here. If you want to, you can go back into a full shoulder stand and roll down from there, but that's a lot more work and it's a lot more unstable, and so I would suggest, if you can do it, just roll down from your Plow Pose. Yeah, so, and once you are down from Plow Pose or shoulder stand, we are all feeling really nice and really good, and that leads us to the next pose, which is Happy Baby. Now, I will not turn to you because this looks really, let's say, interesting from the front. So, basically, Happy Baby is having your legs bent, trying to hold on to the outside or the inside of your foot, and drawing your knees towards your armpit. And this is a really, really nice posture that opens up your hips, it stretches your hamstrings, it stretches the insides of your thighs, and it can be really relaxing if you're open enough to achieve it. If you are not, and very many aren't, what you can do is not reaching for your feet, but holding on to maybe the back of your thighs, or your calves, or whatever feels comfortable for you. What you can also do, obviously, is, once again, having your strap or your belt, and loop it around your feet, and hold on to them here. What is also always an option is trying to just do one foot and then catch the other. This may help you to stretch a little bit deeper, get more into the into the connection of knee and armpit, without putting too much strain on your hips. So this kind of half Happy Baby is a really nice version, I think. Otherwise, if you just want to open your hips and want to stay lying on the floor, then I would suggest doing something like diamond-shaped legs and hang out here while the class is doing Happy Baby. Also, it's perfectly fine if you are here. Like, whatever you can do, just do it. What I want you to be aiming for is that you are actually lying really flat on the ground. So no like rounding up here. I know it is super tempting because in this position there is absolutely no trouble at all connecting my knee to my armpit. Like, they're basically glued together, which they aren't if I'm lying on the floor. But yeah, that's it. Basically, whatever you can do and whatever feels comfortable for you is perfectly alright. So, not being able to go into a full Happy Baby is dependent on such a number of factors. For instance, it depends on your hamstrings, on your hips, on your inside thighs, on your back. In a way, on the length of your arms, like the like how long your arms are compared to your legs, stuff like that. So there may be a ton of factors that play into you not being able to come here easily. So don't worry about it, just do what feels good. And this is really important for me, if you do not feel comfortable for any reason to go into such a position, and I know this is a really vulnerable position for many people, then just don't do it. Particularly if you are in a class and as I've said before, this is a really strange position and a really open position, if you know what I mean, to be in. Particularly in a class where you might not know the other students, where you might not know the teacher. And I completely understand if you do not feel comfortable going into this pose in a public setting, basically. If you have a teacher who does not understand this, I would suggest just getting the hell out of there and never going back, because frankly, this is such an obvious thing to consider that I just can't understand if people do not understand why their students wouldn't want to be in that pose. And if you do not want to be in that pose, if you don't feel comfortable opening up basically like that, then that's perfectly alright and you don't need to do it. Just know that it is absolutely 100% alright that you do not feel comfortable in this position. I totally understand it, okay? Right, so let's get back to the mat, okay? The next positions I want to be talking about are basically the ones where you have one leg up in the air and one leg down on the floor. So that's a really broad category, and basically there's two variations I want to talk about, namely this one where you have a straight leg. It usually is used for stretching your hamstrings, and there are quite a number of variations. So one would be to catch your toe and hold on to your toe as you stretch. One would be to grab your ankle and stretch here. So that's the most common one. Okay, variations. So what I'm doing at the moment is actually a variation. It is a modification because having the leg that is on the floor bent in makes it a lot easier to get your leg up here and grab it. Now, if you can, if you want to go deeper, then stretch out this leg. This intensifies the stretch here. It intensifies the stretch on the hip on the other side. And basically, it just makes the whole experience a lot more intense. If you don't want this, bend it in. Another super easy modification and super obvious one is just not having the leg as straight as possible, but bending it in. And depending on how tight your hamstrings are, this might be super, like, I don't want to say painful because stretching shouldn't be really painful, but this can be super intense. Like having a bent leg can be super intense, and don't worry about it. You absolutely do not need to have a straight leg here, okay? So bending your leg in is a good option. If you still can't reach your toe or your leg or whatever, as I've said, hold on to your ankle, hold on to your shin, maybe grab around your upper thigh, whatever helps you to feel that stretch. Basically, the most important thing is that you, in some way, shape or form, manage to feel that stretch. And if this is enough for you to feel the stretch here, then, well, mission accomplished, I guess. As always, there is the option of using a strap for help, and this is really nice. And this reminds me that there is a super fun option if you really have a yoga strap that you can connect in a safe way, that like you can really pull and it won't budge. Then you can actually use your yoga strap for a passive stretch by hooking it around your head and just hang out here for a bit, because the weight of your head pulls in your leg and the strength of your leg pulls up your head. And this is nice. I mean, this is one of the nicest way of stretching your hamstring if you really want to like do it passively. Now, while I'm having the strap here, let's just go into the next pose I want to be talking about, and this is the hand to big toe pose. And basically I'm talking about the version where you are having your leg out. Now, as you can imagine, having a strap here is super helpful, because having the leg out and still holding onto the toe is or can be quite the stretch, and this can be really, really intense. So again, having a strap to hold on to is a super nice version of doing this. If you do not have a strap and come from a position with a bent knee, then you could try and hold on to your shin or your ankle. However, you will not be able to open up as far without having your hip float up from the floor. And as the main goal of the posture is to have your hips and your pelvis stay on the floor, basically, you might want to, or you may have to compromise and just be okay with the fact that your foot will stay up. And as you can see, you can help yourself feel a little bit more comfortable like this by putting something, a yoga block or something else, beneath your leg. Which brings me to the next point, that you could just let go of your hand completely and have it come out, either propped up or probably slightly further down, lying on the floor, and that's just fine. And if you basically do not care for having your leg out anyway, you can just bend it in and come into kind of a half diamond shape. You can help yourself here again by propping up your knee if you can't open up fully. So this is a really nice way of modifying this. Yeah, this brings me to, oh yeah, okay. This brings me to Pigeon Pose, and before I talk about Pigeon Pose in any more detail, let me make one thing very, very clear. If you have a yoga teacher who tells you that the shin of the leg you have in front needs to be parallel to the top of the mat, ignore them. This just is not true. Basically, what you're aiming for in Pigeon Pose is to have, and I hope you can see this, to have your hip bones more or less in a parallel line to the floor. Now, if you are built like I am, then this can only happen if you have your shin at an angle and if you have your heel really close to your hip. And this is the only way that allows me to have my hip bones more or less parallel. If I tried to have, and you can see it because I have to prop myself up here, if I try to have my shin parallel to the imaginary top of the mat here, then my hip bone would be here. It would be up here compared to being down here. And that is because I'm I'm just built that way. My anatomy is just built that way, and I'm really open in my hips. I'm pretty well stretched, I'm pretty warmed up, and I still can't have my hips or pressure my hips or twist my hips in a way that allows the hip bones to be parallel to the floor when I have my shin out there. So it's a matter of anatomy. And forget any yoga teacher who cues you to have your shin parallel. It's just, if it is not in your body, if this is not how your hips are built, then you will not be able to do this. So just find the position that is the most comfortable for you, and that is the position where you can have your hips basically parallel to the floor. Now, that being said, let's see what the pigeon pose actually is and how to modify it. So for pigeon pose, personally, I like to enter it from either a downward dog or a plank position by simply drawing my leg in, placing it behind the opposite hand, and then just sinking down. And I'm sure you know there are quite a number of variations for pigeon, so you can sit up, you can lay down. This intensifies the stretch in the leg that is in front. Or you can bend in your back knee and create a stretch on the for the quad of the back leg, basically. Now you can go for something like this. You can go into a king pigeon. There are a number of variations. You can also tuck your back knee and make the whole thing. Either you can have your arms up and make it really active, which is also a nice way of building strength here, or you can at least tuck the toes behind, because you simply cannot come down fully. Now, if this is the case for you and you find yourself tilting all over the place, having a block or something else to put under the thigh or the bum or whatever feels best for you of the leg that is in front, is a really nice option to make pigeon a bit more accessible. It also serves to help you square your hips off. So this is a really nice option. Now, if your problem with pigeon is that you have really tight hips, and I know very many people do, then it might be a good idea to try, and instead of having your back leg straight, pulling it in a bit and basically creating a kind of 90-90 position. Now, this usually means that your hip will come off the floor, and that's okay in this case. And this 90-90 position gives you the opportunity to play around a bit. So depending on how much space you actually have in your hips, you can try and push it back a bit, or you can have it basically in a really, really close position. If this is what you can do, then this is your pigeon pose, and let nobody else tell you that this isn't your version of pigeon pose, okay? This is what you can do. And the beauty of this variation is that you can still find the stretch and fold over, and you still will get a super nice stretching sensation in the back of your leg, of your front leg, basically. So this is really similar to pigeon pose and to the stretch you are getting in pigeon pose. It is not exactly the same. It is a little less, well, I won't say intense, but it is a little more gentle, I would say. And I personally like to switch off my pigeon pose with this variation ever so often, because it is slightly different. It feels a bit better on some days, particularly if I'm really tight in my hamstrings. And yeah, maybe you want to try it out too. So what else? Oh yes, there is a chair version of Pigeon Pose, and I personally It doesn't feel really nice for me, so I don't do it. But if it feels good for you, then obviously this is a good variation. And basically what you would be doing is make sure that your chair is in a position where it can't slip away. Then you take your front leg and have it on the floor and be in a pigeon pose like this. Now, personally, I don't find this variation super comfortable, and so yeah, this is your choice, obviously, because everything I'm talking about is your choice. So if this feels great for you, then please go for it. And also, you can do it against a sofa or your bed, and I will say that I have never tried these versions, and I suspect that they might feel actually really nice, so just give it a try. Yeah, and then there is a way of modifying the pigeon that basically is the opposite of a pigeon. It is oftentimes referred to as a dead pigeon, which doesn't sound really nice, but the stretch is. So for it, you would come to lie on your back and basically pick up your leg, the one that would be your front leg usually, cross it over the other leg so that your ankle is roughly a few centimeters below your knee, and then press the knee of the leg that's bent in away from you. Now this is a figure 4 stretch, and this is also known as a dead pigeon, particularly once you pick up your leg and you are here. Yeah, what you can do here, if this isn't giving you a super deep stretch, you can come up here. You can walk your leg in even more. So this should intensify the stretch, and if this isn't enough, then you pick up the leg and wrap your arms around your thigh. And this is super important. Please, please, please never ever grab around your shin, because this only overcompresses your knee, and even if you don't feel it now, I promise you this will lead to knee pain in the long run. So don't go there. Yeah, then you have your leg stretched out. You're still pressing this knee away from you. And you can play around here by bending your straight leg in a bit and finding a really nice stretch. And this position you may also know as a deep glute stretch. And alongside the regular pigeon stretch, I personally find that these two are the very best stretches for sore muscles. So yeah. Okay, so this is pigeon, which leaves us with a reclining spinal twist, and you will most likely already have encountered them a time or two, maybe 3. So what you are doing is drawing one leg in, having it roughly either, well, it is somewhere around your knee, let's say. So it might be directly knee height, it might be further up. And then you basically just twist over across your body. You have your hands out usually, either in a cactus shape or in a T. And for the optimum of stretching, you would look across from where your knee is, so the other way. And your aim in this case is to have both your knee and the shoulder blade of the shoulder that is on the opposite side on the floor. So you should be somewhere here. Now, if you have the flexibility in your spine to have your knee really, really down here, but somehow, you know, on some days you just don't come all the way down, you can hold on to your knee with your hand a bit. Just be gentle and don't Like, don't really push down, just, you know, be gentle, basically. Anyway, so this would be the full expression. If you can't do this, one super easy way of making it more accessible is by just drawing the other leg in as well, making you go into kind of a fetal position. This helps make it really easy to have your shoulder on the floor, and you can hang out here. And if this still isn't what you're looking for, but you want to, you know, make it a lot more restorative, then I would suggest grabbing a bolster, stretching out next to it, and just having one leg, so the upper leg up on the bolster, and then depending on how you're feeling, you could either stay here and just enjoy it, or you can introduce a little bit of a twist by just opening up your arm. And this is a really comfortable position, and this is a position if you, for example, are pregnant. This is really nice if you have a belly and need to, you know, make room for it, basically. And yeah, so that would be a version of the twist you can do if you, as I've said, either pregnant or if you are in a larger body, or also if you have had injuries in your back before and you can't twist as well, but still want to have the comfort of, you know, being on your side, having your knee over and maybe trying to open a bit, stuff like that. So yeah, basically I think that's it. I think this is what I wanted to cover, and in case you're wondering why I'm not covering Shavasana, yes, it is a lying posture, but I personally think it's such a personal posture. It has so much to do with personal preference that I don't feel that I can do it justice. So whatever feels best for you in terms of relaxation, whether it is lying on your back, or whether it is having your legs up, or whether it is sitting up, because quite a number of people just don't like just don't like lying on the floor open like that with their eyes closed, and that's perfectly alright. And they tend to sit up and find an easy seat, for example. Well, what I want to say is that basically whatever version feels best for you, whatever feels good for you on any given day, this is the perfect Shavasana pose, and I won't be like, I can't tell you what feels good, basically, and so I won't. And yeah, before I go on and talk a lot of nonsense, I will call it a day, and thank you for watching this video. I hope there was something in here that helped you. If you have any other suggestions, I'm always open for new information, for new ideas. I would absolutely welcome each and every comment you have, and if you just want to say hi, then please do all of that in the comments below. And I will see you tomorrow, I hope. Bye!